Hello, listeners. I am your host, Noah Mears, and you are listening to A Cup of Film. On this podcast, we will discuss filmmaking, movie reviews, and theater experience. Today, we are sitting down with festival runner Mack Lunn, and we will be discussing the Canadian film Kid Detective, editing, and Mack's experience running a film festival. Let us take a sip of cinema. Okay, Mack, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm better now.
Better now,
I'm excited
definitely.
to be here with you. Yeah.
Yeah, this is exciting. Okay, you suggested a movie to me recently, Kid Detective. It's a Canadian film, I found out. After I watched it, I could kind of like, looking back, see the relevance and like the Canadian type of cinema, you know what I mean? But I loved it. Tell me your general opinions.
Well, I'm really glad that you watched it, because it's hard to find.
Yeah.
I had to purchase it when I watched it, and I've been recommending it to people left and right, and not many people have actually gone through and watched it. So I was really excited that you.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was definitely like I saw on there. I was like, oh, I have to rent it. I was like, it's a movie. I'll rent it. I don't really care that much.
It was so worth it.
It definitely is. I have it for like another 24 hours, so I'm probably gonna watch it a few more times.
I ended up buying it after I watched it because it looked kind of cutesy, a little bit nostalgic, and it's sort of like a timeless movie where it's almost like Hardy Boys or something like that, where it's
Nancy Drew or something like that. It felt like a happy noir, you know what I mean? Like most noir is very depressive, very dark, black and white. This is in color.
And then it has that really dark twist about in the third act whenever you realize what all's going on. It goes from where he's solving these ice cream capers and the thief of the cupcake and all that. He turns it into something that's actually like gritty. It has like murder and kidnapping.
Yeah, definitely. That's where I kind of got like the whole learning to be a detective. He's definitely learning throughout the film. It's like one of my favorite scenes is when he's on the rooftop and like he's like, oh, this is locked. This used to be unlocked in my day. And then the girl's like, oh, actually, we can go through the window. And he's like acting like she's patronizing him. Like that was such a good scene.
Yeah. There's like a mood shift too. I don't want to spoil it for people that are listening, because a lot of people I've talked to haven't watched it. But when he finds the grape soda in the refrigerator, and it sort of clicks that, oh no, and then it's just sort of a wild ride as it exits out of the film.
Yeah,
that mood shift was just incredible.
Oh
I
yeah,
felt it so heavy.
I did not predict the ending. I don't usually try to sit there and like figure out what's going on, but I definitely was like, oh. This is like blowing my mind. You warned me too. You were like, hey, when you watch this, you're gonna see little signs, and then it's gonna come to fruition, and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
It sweeps the rug out from under you.
It really does, and I love like Canadian cinema. Like I love cinema from other countries. Like you really get to see a culture shift. Something I loved about this film was kind of the happier mood most of the people were in. Like there were the people who didn't like him, but overall, the town appreciated him.
Kind of had that Edward Scissorhands sort of perfect community.
Exactly. It felt like Happyville or with Tobey Maguire. It felt like that a
similar,
lot.
Yeah. But it has that detective noir where it's almost a parody of itself.
Yeah.
But then when the reality seeps in and comes through, it's just, wow. It was like, so well done.
It was perfectly done. I'm pretty sure the director's name is Evan Morgan. He's like a new coming filmmaker. So hopefully he has some more work that comes out. But I was going to ask you, what's your favorite scene?
Oh, definitely right before the grape soda when he's in the room with the principal and the principal is going on the monologue.
Yeah.
Everything about that is art.
No, definitely. I love that scene. I guess my favorite, just from like a comedic point of view, I loved when he was in the closet and he sneezed.
And then it cuts to
him being arrested. Like I love that. I was like, oh my goodness, this is like that's maybe the greatest cut I've seen in a lot of cinema. You know what I mean?
I agree, because so much story was told without showing any of it. You know exactly.
You know exactly what just happened, who was called, where he was taken, and he's being shunned by this little or this police officer, and it was like, I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was a really, really cool scene. It was funny. It was overall a funny movie. I enjoyed the comedy in it. It was really, really fun.
I'll watch anything else they come out with because
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I've never seen a movie like that.
No, you typically don't see like a new spin on an old genre. You might see a new spin on like an old concept, but that's not a whole genre.
And all of the actors looked familiar. And when I looked them up,
Yes.
I think one of them is in a Netflix show called Imposters, where I've seen them, but they're not familiar enough to where I could place where I'd seen them before, which that's unique too, because I think you're the same where you memorize everybody's work and when you
Yeah.
watch it. So
Yeah, I was definitely trying to figure out what Adam Brody was in. Like the whole time watching it, I was like, he looks so familiar. He looked like a kind of like a best friend role. You know
Yeah.
how there's like the stereotypical cliche best friend? Like he looked like he played a best friend in something. There's a really good movie called, I think it's called Let Me Remember. It has Robert Pattinson in it. And it's about like pre 9/11 and like it goes into 9/11. But the best friend in that movie, he looks identical to him. So I was like, wait, is this guy? But no,
Yeah.
it wasn't. But no, I recommend that movie to people as well.
it sort of like scratches my itch too, because I like really dark movies.
Yeah.
But I also, I don't want to take them too seriously. So it's like a lighthearted twist.
Yeah, so many like people try to stick to one like narrative, and allowing yourself to be funny and then mysterious and dramatic. You really allow people to relax for a minute. Most people can't relax during certain like noir films or dramatic films like that, crime thrillers, because you're like always on pace. But I really like how they slowed it down at different points. They really like the ice cream shop. I love the little ice cream shop.
They took their time with those.
They
scenes.
did.
Yeah.
It was well written. It really was.
Yeah. I'm glad you liked it. It's so hard to find people to talk about with it too. So.
Yeah, it's one of those that like not a lot of people's probably seen, so it's hard to find somebody who's going to be able to like talk about that specific film. That's something I hate about like indie films, because I love indie films. A24 is starting to get a little bit more popular, so again, with it being in theaters, there's a lot more people who have seen them, so I can be like, oh, have y'all seen this? And they can be like, yeah. But yeah, definitely check out Kid Detective. You'll probably have to rent it, but hopefully we'll blow it up enough to where Hulu gets it or Netflix or something.
Surely. The few people that have, that have begged to watch that finally gave in, they've all loved it too. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, looking at the reviews, it gets like an 84 on Rotten Tomato. It gets a really
impressive.
Yeah, and I think it gets like a 7+ on IMDb. So it's like it's critically acclaimed in some regard.
That's great.
Definitely. Well, I guess shifting to editing.
Oh, yeah.
You are a big editor. You do editing for a lot of people. I guess I was going to hit you with like your favorite software. What software do you use when you edit most of the time?
So, sort of just by default, my bread and butter is Premiere, Adobe Premiere.
Definitely.
I do a little bit with After Effects when needed, but I'm sort of. We were talking earlier, like you have like the artistic vision of the productions that you want to do.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the other side of it, where I'm usually just a technical editor. Back when I started, you could get really far in the industry just knowing how to cut and move around scenes. And, overlay different visuals over audio and things like that. It's a little tougher now. People are growing up on TikTok and they know how to edit pretty well by the time they're 13. So I did have to adapt and grow, but I do a lot of technical editing. Started out, I've been doing web projects in some form or fashion since I was about 12. Back when the internet was new. And
back when it was like the beginning.
I was one of the first YouTube users. I used to work for MySpace.com. Which,
oh wow,
that's a relic.
Yeah, definitely. You said that. I was like, I know I'm not like, I don't want to say old. I don't want to do you like that, but I definitely know what MySpace is, and I've heard stories. My parents were on MySpace, like they'll be like, oh yeah, that was like this before this, and I'm like, everything's a new this before this now, but
that kind of hurts that it's apparent.
I know. I feel bad, but no, yeah, like I don't know. I wish people would kind of like go back to like older apps. There's some really cool like concepts out there that people should revisit or even remake. I mean, there's no harm. There's a billion apps out there, if not even more.
Hey, if TikTok ends up getting banned in the U.S., maybe people will go back to MySpace.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of negative energy towards it. I'm not a super like savvy TikTok user. I'll hop on there to watch like comedy clips. Like that's my bread and butter on TikTok. But I mean, I'll use YouTube Reels. YouTube
Yeah.
Reels are really
Yeah.
good for me. I don't even get on Instagram really. I feel
Really.
like Instagram's too curated towards like poetic content, and I
Mhm.
sometimes just want to watch Matt Damon talk about what Stanley Kubrick was like
Right.
back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Like that's my kind of
Yeah.
energy.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, so when I started, technically I was working with MySpace.
yeah.
I had started making tutorials on how to do HTML code and things like that.
hmm
Um, it's sort of a whole saga of how it got started, but I started making videos for that, putting them on YouTube,
hmm
and then Tom Anderson connected with me. He's Tom from MySpace that sent it over the desk and all those
Yeah.
photos. And he asked if he could promote that. So he ended up putting it on the front page of MySpace and on his profile for
Oh,
about
wow.
4 years. And so everything that got sent there, I was getting Google Ads payments out of
Yeah.
it. So it was a pretty exciting little time. I was 15 when I started,
Really?
14 or 15.
Wow.
It was pretty fun. But I started editing then, and I've just never really stopped it. Once I started doing websites professionally,
hmm
everything has video with it. I was
Yeah,
making video
definitely.
backgrounds, and so you learn a lot about you getting high quality video, but in the
hmm
smallest size and the fastest loading speed that you can possibly get for
Yeah.
backgrounds. Became a technical editor, and that's sort of what led into me getting interested in documentaries because, with a documentary, you can kind of just take a project as it is and find the story in it, but it's a lot of technical work in addition
hmm
to storytelling. But I didn't have to write. I didn't have to,
Yeah, that's one thing about it.
invent
hmm
a new world and film and things like that. I was able to just take what exists and convert it. So I do that for a lot of folks. Um, I also, I told you earlier, probably 50 to 60% of my time is spent, of my editing time is spent restoring old media, analog or
Yeah, you brought
yeah.
that up with Nashville VHS,
Mhm.
right? Okay, tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about that.
So in 1996, there was up until 1996, I think it was 1982 to 1986, there was a nationally broadcast channel in
Okay.
Nashville called the Nashville Network, TNN. And in 1996, they were shutting down the network. I think it lasted until about 1998.
hmm
It correlated with the shutdown of the theme park, Opryland, and up until that point, everything was analog. It was on physical media, VHS tapes, beta tapes, things like that. So where did they store those? In warehouses. So they had all these warehouses in Nashville and surrounding areas that were just full of bins full of VHS tapes. So
Yeah.
um, through whatever means necessary, I have become the owner of a lot of those tapes
Oh, wow.
because they didn't want to pay for the storage for them. Because
Yeah.
storage unit in Nashville, as you can imagine, would be pretty expensive.
hmm
It's like paying rent. So they started just throwing them away, taking them to different places. So I got about 1,000 of them.
Oh, my.
And since then, I've probably doubled that collection. My basement is full of probably 100 VCRs, oscilloscopes,
Wow.
just all sorts of digitizing equipment.
hmm
Pretty big station there. So I take those VHS tapes, run them through either a consumer or a prosumer tape deck,
hmm
digitize it, upscale it, and just try to capture as best as I can all these moldy, nasty, falling apart
Yeah.
tapes. And I found some really good gems on there. And once I digitize them, I put them on YouTube
hmm
because I don't really know the ownership legality of it.
Yeah.
Because some of these are what actually aired on TNN.
hmm
Some of them are shows that were TNN shows, and some of them are just the raw footage where if they were going to do a news segment on a polo game, they would send somebody out to film it. And so I
Yeah.
have 8 hours of a polo game
Oh, my
um,
goodness. That's
on these
crazy.
tapes. It's pretty wild, and it's all from the 70s, 80s, 90s.
hmm
So it's pretty wild. So some of the things I found that didn't exist on the internet, they were only on tape in my basement for the past 30 years, are Ray Charles playing Old Time Religion,
Oh,
which
wow.
if you look up Ray Charles performances, there are websites that have a list of every performance he's ever done. And Old Time Religion is grayed out because they don't have video of it. Until last year, I found it,
Wow.
1982, on the Barbara Mandrell show. him sitting at a computer, or not at a computer, that would be crazy in 1982, at a piano,
Yeah.
playing Old Time Religion. There was an interview with governor.
Uh-huh.
I think he was governor at the time, Bill Clinton and Al Gore and Tipper Gore and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And I think 1992, before they were president and vice president, or before Hillary was even known as anything other than, Bill
Yeah.
Clinton's wife,
Mm-hmm.
um, on the Ralph Emery show, which is a Nashville staple. He was like a pretty famous
Yeah.
Nashville star. Found that on there, just all sorts of like really crazy stuff. So I've grown the channel. It's still slow growing. It's not my most popular internet piece, but it's been a lot of fun. So I get the analog file, convert it to digital,
Mm-hmm.
and normally have to pass it through several times. And if it's an
Yeah.
8-hour tape, it takes at least 8 hours to run it through because
Mm-hmm. It's playing it at that speed. Yeah.
exactly, and it's hard for people to imagine what that looks like because everybody's used to digital media where you can upload a 2-hour video in a minute.
Yeah.
But when you're doing things in real time, it takes forever. So I've invented all these really useless gadgets that me and about 2 other people in the world can use, like a VHS screwdriver where I can hand crank it so I can clean the mold off
Oh, wow.
inch at a time while I'm watching videos, things like that. So I was really heavy into this when we started directing the Cookeville Film Festival,
Yeah.
the documentary film festival. I was having to watch a lot of documentaries
Mm-hmm.
for review to see which were going to come in. So I cleaned a lot of tapes. In that
Oh, I
time.
bet you got a lot done. That's crazy.
It was really useful time. But you get them clean, you get them digitized, you upscale, you deinterlace, do your best with it, and the AI
Oh, yeah.
upscaling, it's more advanced than I'm able to use right now.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of those old shows that say enhance, and
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
it was sort of like science fiction. On
Yeah,
those shows.
yeah.
But now you can actually enhance these things. But yeah, so to answer your question, Premiere.
Yeah, back to the original question, I guess, Premiere. But yeah, that's really cool. I mean, you kind of put yourself on like a hit list for VHS lovers right now because now everybody's like, oh my gosh, you got, wow, 2,000. That's
At least, yeah.
That's insane. I have like maybe 50 of them,
Yeah.
and I'm like, they're my prized possession because you're not gonna. I mean, somebody needs to re-release VHS tapes. I'm putting them on the spot
Yeah.
because I grew up with VHS tapes because I grew up in the early 2000s. So DVDs would get messed up if you were a little kid. So your parents would hand you a tape. They'd be like, it's hard for you to mess this up.
Yep.
So we would stick it in, it would suck it in, and then it would, you'd have to rewind it in the little speed, and you just sit there and you wait for it to go back, and it took forever. You walk away pushing the button. No, I miss VHS tapes. I love
I do too.
VHS tapes.
There's something beautiful about it being stored physically. Like I love digital
Yeah.
media, but having it just physically on magnetic tape is just it's pretty cool that exists. That somebody invented that so early.
Oh, yeah.
But I love it. I do a lot for people that have like home videos as well. People send those to me all the time, and I'll
Oh,
get
you'll
their
clean
memories
them
off,
for them?
yeah, and get them digitized because it's a lot easier to watch things on it nowadays, especially
Yeah.
digitally. It's near impossible to get it to play on a VHS.
Yeah,
player,
you're
so
just gonna
VCR,
run
so-
it so many times, and then it's gonna like fade away. VHS tapes were like, my mom used to have one of those cameras,
Yeah.
and she'd record the little tapes, and we'd
Yeah.
go to Disney World, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is crazy," and I'm like,
we should digitize them.
I mean, I'll definitely mention it to her. I know she's over here like, we don't even have a VHS player anymore, so it's like I'll go to my parents and like can't even watch a VHS tape,
There's a group, estate sale company in Nashville, a Daisy a Day. I'll give them a shout out. And they've been working with me too, where when they find old VHS tapes when they're doing estate sales, they set them aside in a box, and I'll come buy them from them. And
Oh, gotcha.
nothing personal. Like I don't put personal information on the internet, but
Yeah.
one of the ones that I found that way was the I think it's Laverne High School, 1987.
Okay.
And it's just their homecoming game, so you could see all the kids on the back of their cars like, driving around the football field, and it's just so
Yeah.
wild to see all the mullets and the
Oh yeah, the hairstyle difference. Oh, it's completely different than what we're dealing with nowadays.
brand new Thunderbirds. At the time, it was a really hot.
Oh
hot
yeah.
car, but
I love those
crazy.
videos you see on like YouTube where it's like, this is what the class of 1987 looked like, and they'll go
Yep.
around the whole homeroom and they'll
Yeah.
do a quick sweep. I
It's
love
really
stuff
fun.
like that.
It's really fun. A lot of country music just because of where we are,
Mm-hmm.
but but yeah, I have a love for VHS. I don't know how I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it was just staring at a screen so long each day
Yeah,
for work that it's kind of nice to
I get
do
that.
something with your hands too.
Shifting away from technology is always a good one. So, getting into festivals, you are like a festival runner
Mhm.
for Cookville,
Mhm.
and I've been to your festival, the documentary series in the fall of last year, 2022. It's an
Thank you for
amazing festival. Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Yeah, I
You're one
was.
of the few.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, I was one of the
Mhm.
younger people there. I definitely,
Mhm.
I feel like shocked some people. They were like,
Yeah.
this 20, 21, 22-year-old wants to come in and talk about film and documentaries.
Mhm.
It's very, very niche, but
I'm glad you were there, and I'm glad to have met you. So
yeah,
people listening at home probably don't know, but there was a banquet the night before,
yeah,
and you
the
came to that,
banquet.
and you got to meet
Oh yeah.
some of the really great people that helped put it on, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that connection is super valuable to people like you that are trying to break into
Definitely.
making a name for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite people ever outside of film or whatever is Rob Davis. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
He runs the River Run Film Festival up
Yeah,
in
you were
St.
talking about
Louis.
that. Yeah.
Mhm. And so you got to meet him there, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm eternally grateful to him for helping us to run the Cookville Film Festival. He helped us
Yeah.
get our feet off the ground. I was the co-director the first year and the director last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked. I say that, but Waverly. Can we cut a little bit of that?
Yeah, yeah, we'll blip that out. We'll blip that out.
Okay. So I was the co-director the first year,
Mhm.
the inaugural year, with Amanda Powell upstairs, and then last year, I was, I guess, the director. I worked alongside Avery Hutchins at WCTE, who's phenomenal, and I mean the amount of work that she put into this, making it run is second to none. She's incredible. So really glad that it worked out. We got some really good acts this
Mhm.
year. I love documentaries, so I'm like
Yeah.
privileged to be able to work with those so directly. But yeah, Rob, he stepped in. He helped us understand what needs to be done, a timeline, got us really good connections with submitters, so that
Mm-hmm.
we got a lot of really good films this year.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was Bury Me at Taylor Hollow.
I enjoyed that one. You were like, I remember you came over and you were like, hey, pay attention to this one. This one right here is really, really good stuff.
We've talked off screen about this, about documentaries,
Yeah.
and how sometimes it's sort of just a Wikipedia article, and then sometimes it's a real story that's just true. And
Yeah.
those are far and away the ones that I prefer watching. And Bury Me at Taylor Hollow it's such a journey. It starts off with a story of a guy trying to build a sanctuary for the deceased. He was a funeral director, and he just an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Such an incredible story. So that's when they started making the video, not knowing whether he could do it or not. And so then the rest of the rest of the film follows the story of him. And spoiler alert, it works out.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey it took for him to get there, and
Yeah.
just one of the best guys. At the film festival, there were people that came up to him. He was there and spoke to him afterwards about what it would take to get their mother or father into the sanctuary.
Yes.
And I remember just passively, I was standing near him because just by proximity, nothing more. I heard him say, they asked him if they could afford it and how they were kind of broke and stuff. And he said, "Don't worry about that. We're going to make it work for you." And
Yeah.
so just great guy. He deserves
Amazing.
a story to be told.
Mhm.
Altruistic, respectful of death, like confronts it head on.
Yeah.
Such a good documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there were not a lot of young folks that made it out this year, so I was glad to see you
Yeah.
there.
I was probably, me and my friend at the time were
Mhm.
the only like 21, 22-year-olds at the party. Like it was
Yeah.
kind of like we looked around, we were like, oh, This is interesting. I kind of thought I was in the wrong place at first because I thought it was going to be more, but I loved how intimate it was because it allowed everybody who was there to kind of connect. And like you said, you introduced me to tons of people, and I was making really good connections. I met some people involved with the Nashville Film Festival, which was really cool. And like you said, just kind of getting your name out there and shaking hands, rubbing elbows with people who have the same interests, the same drive.
I couldn't think more highly of some of the folks that were able to get there, and really glad that you got to meet them. And they're so. That's another thing that we've spoken about is how everybody that's in the industry recognizes desire and intent, and when they see it, they're so more than willing to help. It's like one of the most valuable things you could do breaking into this industry, and that's how the limited success I've had has come about was just people saw something in me and gave me opportunities, and now I do that as often as I can, trying to give back a percentage of what I was given. So
no, definitely. I mean, a lot of, and we talked about this earlier, but like a lot of filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers, I should say, have this notion that they're going to write $1 million script and they're going to get flown out to Hollywood and they're going to direct a movie and it's going to be this big ordeal. I'm guilty of that because for the first 2 or 3 years of being an adult, I was like, okay, this is my mission in life. But I didn't know how to start that mission. I just saw the goals that were kind of unachievable at that age, and unachievable based on environment or based on experience too. I mean, not everybody's going to be Tarantino at 19 and not everybody's going to be Nolan at 21. And that's kind of where I kind of had to take a step back. And I was like, okay, let me reevaluate the craft. Let me learn more about screenwriting. Let me learn more about camera work, angles, depth, everything involved with cinematography. And that's kind of where I've been stuck on lately is cinematography. I love cinematography.
That is sort of the negative side of this craft is that you have to be good at everything.
No, yeah, you got to be great at everything.
Arts and crafts, making sets, audio, video, storytelling, writing.
Especially at like a lower level. Like I've noticed with stuff I've worked on, like the person who's willing to do it because they love it are going to get stuck with it, whether they know how to do it or not. Like I've been stuck editing projects before because it's like, well, you said you'd like it. And I'm like, well, I'll take it. And then it's like 8 hours in, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I hate editing. Personally, it's probably lowest on the list, but I like being able to curate what comes out.
I think one of your questions on the prep sheet was how long does it take to finish a project?
Yes.
And I'm right there with you where I'm probably not the most talented person, but I will kill it with time.
Oh yeah.
If I can go toe to toe with anybody with the amount of time that I put into these projects. You can't outwork people willing to get the job done.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they chose me for the festival was I have a pretty good track record of finishing things, getting them done on time.
Oh, definitely.
And are you able to talk about, speaking of the projects that you're going through, what you have going on tomorrow?
Yeah, I have a shoot going on tomorrow. Hopefully we get everybody there and everybody situated, but we're shooting a short film here on Tech.
That's exciting.
I've kind of spread out the word. I need a lot of extras for the scenes. It's basketball themed. It's kind of spoofy. I wish I could have cast Adam Sandler, but we got my good friend Tyler Rich.
Is he pretty close?
He's close to Adam Sandler. He's definitely got a personality. We love Tyler. Tyler's amazing. Actually, the film was inspired by him and kind of just his atmosphere and his vibe. I play basketball with him quite often. So we kind of connected over that, and just working on other projects. I was like, I want to get something started. Yeah. You get hungry, and then I got hungry, and I got a lot of food thrown on my plate now, and it's like I'm doing another project. I actually have 3 projects in a row within a week, and it's like I'm not even going to edit any of it until the summer. I'm going to be like, okay, took this footage, and wait, and we're going to release it hopefully in the summer or at the beginning of the semester.
It's sort of like you said about wanting your first screenplay to be the one.
Yeah.
The best advice I've heard was just write it. Write the worst one you're ever going to write.
No, definitely.
And you get better and better. I can't remember the guy's name that said that, but he was a writer on King of the Hill, the cartoon.
Oh, okay.
And he said, that's why they hire me. Is I've got 1 million of them. I write it. I sell it. Hopefully it does well. And if it doesn't,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. You had a project that you kind of, I don't know, we're going to touch on it. We can't be specific, but we're going to have you back on the podcast once it comes to
airs,
fruition and talk about it a little bit more. Give us a little bit of a tease, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
A tease.
I do have to be a little secretive about it, but I am working on what I hope is a pretty big documentary.
Yeah.
The prep work for it was several months. It sort of just a happenstance that spun out of control, and we were lucky enough to be able to record every minute of it. For the prep work was 4 months, and then the final act was 2 months that culminated in one weekend. But we got some amazing footage, and it's one of those documentaries that I like to watch.
Yeah.
Where you don't know where it's going. You're not sure what's going to happen. At the end, you just know there's a story there, so you just capture everything, and then you start to get those sort of parallels that build up where everything's balanced. What's the word? Where it's
the symmetry of it.
Symmetry, yes. So you'll have something from the very first part that relates right at the culmination of it. I'm really proud of the people involved. We had a couple of comedians join me on the project, and they took it and ran with it. They couldn't have done it without them. And now it's become sort of their work, and we've become really good friends. It's not the pranks you do, it's the friendships you make as you prank.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was such a fun experience, and sort of like you were saying, I've been doing this a while. Most of my work is technical editing, but this, I had to learn how to improv. And really a testament to these guys. When you're watching like Sacha Baron Cohen, and who's tertiarily involved in this project, actually, you see the jokes that land on screen. You're like, man, that's just so flawless. Or Jordan Klepper, he's a really good example of somebody that just effortlessly navigates situations. But what you don't see, and these guys exhibited really well, is the hard work and the practice that they put in. I think I can get away with saying his first name, Ben, the guy that I was working with on this. He had notes galore where we would write jokes. The night before we went to meet up, he and the other comedian were just passing around joke after joke. I was chipping in, and they were like, "Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna write that down," and they just memorize it on the car ride. They're reading their phone, their notes app, they're going through it, and you really just can't imagine the hard work that goes into looking effortless. And then when the time came, I told you off camera a little bit of the pizzazz that landed at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
And on screen, it's going to look like it was just, a 1 in a million chance. But they really planned so much, and they worked so hard to make it look so easy.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed with those guys. Really lucky to work with them. And I think we're going to be lifelong friends now after that. Hopefully work on some more projects together. And as soon as this gets the green light and gets out there, I want to talk to you about it.
Yes, we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about this big role and hopefully the carriers of it. And
hopefully it will be on streaming.
Hopefully, that's the plan. I think so. I'm excited. It's going to be some good energy. I guess we'll kind of get close to the final questions. I like to ask top 3 favorite movies.
Oh man, so you mentioned A24 earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
I was introduced to A24 watching their horror movies.
Okay,
Not for me. Not a fan. They're very artistic and a little bit abstract, like Midsommar. Everybody loves Midsommar.
Yeah.
I can't get into it. But I saw Swiss Army Man.
I've not seen that one.
It's spectacular.
Really?
It's such a abstract buddy comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the premise of the movie?
Not really.
Okay, so Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe, plays a bloated, dying corpse, or dead corpse that washes up on a island. And this gentleman discovers that he has the powers of a Swiss Army knife, but he's a Swiss Army man. So he can pump water out of his mouth, and it sounds preposterous. And I thought it was going to be just like this funny, obscure little comedy, but it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. And who was it? It's the same two that made Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I've talked about them before.
It's like the Justins or the
something like that.
It's gonna kill me.
It's gonna kill me too.
It's right on the tip of my tongue. But those, when I heard that they were gonna make another movie, they were coming out with another movie. I was like, well, I'm absolutely gonna watch that. that movie was Everything Everywhere all at once,
Mm-hmm.
which currently I think is probably the movie I've watched the most in the last year. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Another thing we've talked about, just because we talk a lot about movies,
Yeah.
is people that aren't involved in making documentaries and films and projects aren't really familiar with the technical side of things, or the people say they like movies and they say here are the reasons I like them, but I'll watch a movie and I'll say, oh, that is technically done really well. The story's horrible, but like somebody knew what they were doing with their camera work and their shots
Oh, yeah.
and framing. And then every now and then I'll see something where I'm like, well, that looks really easy to do, but my God, was that story fantastic? And Everything Everywhere All at Once just checks all my boxes. That's such a good movie. It's technically spectacular. The story's amazing. I've heard somebody say that they're, instead of being introverts, they're extroverts. No, I'm sorry. Instead of minimalists, they're maximalists.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And they just put everything they can into it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so glad they did. Like every scene of that.
No, yeah, definitely. I've seen it I think I've seen it 3 times, not fully through, but I've seen it twice fully through. But yeah, it keeps you on your seat. Like, man, you can't look away. You can't get up because you're going to miss something pivotal to the storyline. You're going to miss a plot point. You're going to miss something necessary to fully understand how great that film is from a story point of view.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And sort of in that vein, so I love those 2 movies. I love Kid Detective.
Yeah, Kid Detective's great.
But I'd say the other movie that I've seen that just I can watch every day until the end of time is Cronos Crímenes. It's a Spanish film that means time crimes, and I love time travel movies. I love Primer. That's another one that's at the top of my list. Predestination. I love time travel movies.
Yes.
But Cronos Crímenes starts with a time loop. But then you realize, oh wait, it's a bigger time loop inside another time loop, and so you see the story kind of spiral out from itself. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. Technically speaking, you're right, I could have filmed it. Wouldn't have been wouldn't have been that challenging. But story wise, it's just phenomenal. So that's another one I think I'm gonna have to get you to watch so we can talk about, because nobody watches.
Like I'm somebody who tries to search for those like oddball films, but I get locked up in like the 90s and the 80s because I don't know, I'm younger, so like I'm just chasing those movies that really built a culture and built a film culture, and so many people don't like them. I get a lot of heat for liking Pulp Fiction, but I love Pulp Fiction, and Pulp Fiction has a lot wrong with it, but that's what makes it Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is not a good guy story. Right. It is literally the bad guys. And The Boys is a good example of people are kind of hypocritical. They like The Boys, and then they're like, "Oh, Pulp Fiction's too far." I'm like, "No, The Boys is pretty bad too."
Season 1 of The Boys.
Oh yeah.
My God.
It's crazy what you can and can't create in the world of cinema.
It is really true, and I think too, tone has a lot to do with it, where you can tell when somebody is obviously being farcical versus I say that, but a lot of people thought The Boys was true to scope. It is what you see, but I like to think that it's farcical at least. But I think Pulp Fiction is a really good example of that, where it's there's layers to it. It's not straightforward.
So many layers. It's like I'm gonna beat myself up for not being able to name it off. The first thing Tarantino did, he wrote it, he sold it. It has Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette in it. It's oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're gonna have to edit this in.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out. We need to get a technical person over there to Google for us.
You can't see it at home, but we have a live studio audience.
Yeah, just a group of people in the corner by the fire escape. But like you said, I mean,
I love Tarantino.
Yeah, Tarantino. I could do a whole month-long podcast about Tarantino. He's just, I don't know, he's my director. I always say Nolan objectively is a better director than Tarantino. But if you want to be entertained, go watch a Tarantino film. Go watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which doesn't get enough credit because of its length, and it's like it's a period piece. So a lot of people have a hard time watching that. One of my guests who was on here she talked about how much she loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
I do
and
love
she's
that
my
movie.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, that's crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't think anybody under the age of like 27 would
Mhm.
actually enjoy that film.
Well, you were saying you like those 80s and 90s movies, and that's sort of where I film my, or for my basis of film off
Yeah.
of is, just those like straightforward scenes and like the shots from those
Hmm.
movies is, if you watch anything I make, it replicates that.
Yeah.
And again, mostly I'm doing documentaries, so it's not one to one. I can't do like Die Hard with a documentary,
Yeah.
um, but I always even when I'm doing like silly little TikToks, I try to find creative angles.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
mimic those
mhm.
those moments in cinema that people appreciate and love.
There's a trend right now where people are creating their own Wes Anderson movies on their vacations.
Oh,
And it's so funny,
I've
but
seen
it's
some of those.
yeah,
Wes Anderson is amazing. I love
yeah.
how he said symmetry like doesn't like matters more than like
Hmm.
basic composition. You know, like
He's doing
nothing.
all right.
He is. I mean, everything is center frame, and I
Yeah.
love it because a lot of people. I mean, if you watch it and you pay attention, you see that the antagonist or protagonist will be center screen, and he'll
Mhm.
clutter the sides evenly.
Yeah.
There will not be anything off. They will be completely
Yeah.
symmetrical to each other. And I think
I
doing
love
that
it.
is pretty amazing to break through those boundaries.
In my car, I have a couple years ago, Wes Anderson partnered with a sunglass company, Tins, and so they have sunglasses
Oh no.
with the filter that is almost like sepia toned.
Yeah.
It's a perfect summer sunglass because
Wow.
everything looks like you're in a Wes Anderson movie.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to get a pair of
Mhm.
those. I mean,
It's pretty much blue blockers,
yeah, yeah.
but with a little bit of pizzazz to it.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'll have to let you try them on. And
Oh
see if
yeah,
you like
I'll
them
have
for
to
sure.
see them and
Yeah.
look through them. But okay, hit me with your favorite theater experience, like singular film experience.
So when I was reading about this, I thought back, and I have a lifetime of
Oh yeah.
going to movies, and especially in high school, my friends Stoney and Brandon, we used to go to a movie every week. That was sort of what we did.
Yeah.
But the one that stands out was when Endgame came out,
Okay.
and I'm not a Marvel movie fan. I'm
Yeah.
not super into that, but I went with my friend Gabe to the Hundred Oaks Regal Hollywood movie theater, which is it looks like something out of the 50s. But
Yeah.
inside, they've redone it so they have reclining seats. It's like watching a Lazy Boy, leather recliner. We all got our own large popcorn, and I haven't had a soda in a year now, but for that,
Yeah.
I was drinking a huge Coke, and just the energy. Now, do I think that's a good movie? It's entertaining, but
Yeah.
but when they open up the portals and they come, all the formerly to believe to be deceased characters come flying out.
Mm-hmm.
Captain America picks up the hammer, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just the energy in the theater where
Oh,
everybody's
yeah.
just losing their minds. It was that was like a cultural experience. I feel like it was. I'm really glad I went to see it in theaters, but it just knocked my socks off. I think your camera's just
Yeah, we
flicking
lost
again.
video. We've had lost video. I think for like 5 minutes.
Oh, that's
So
okay.
we're just gonna have audio from here on, folks.
I've
But
been told I have a face for radio. So
a face for definitely a face for radio. But no, yeah, like Endgame came out. I might not like the movie, but I can appreciate the
Right.
theatrical elements to it. You know,
I thought what was the one before it?
Infinity War was brilliant.
That's one of the best movies I've ever
Oh
seen.
yeah,
Um,
it's in my top 5 like greatest films ever made.
And so when I was sitting in the theater, and everyone was led to believe that half of the Avengers are dead
Yes.
right after Black Panther had come out, which unfortunately that sort of did come to fruition because of the real life circumstances. But just leaving the theater hanging on that moment was such a ballsy move.
It really was.
I hate that they undid it. I really do.
No, I that's my biggest criticism with Endgame, and the biggest thing I can't get over is the fact that I like to call it the Thanos effect, is when you create a sequel to something and you bring back the villain from the first one in the most obscure way. It's
Yeah.
my biggest criticism of Avatar too.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Really,
I'm afraid to because I liked the first one so much.
if you genuinely love the first one, it might be harder to get to the second one, because I
Mm-hmm.
personally didn't really like the first. It's a great film, but I wasn't like blown away. I didn't see it in theaters either, but no, I love the second Avatar. It's worth a watch, but it might ruin it a little bit for you. I mean, it's just
Right.
so colorful and so. I mean, he really does play with special effects a lot. And you see, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but I'm going to say it anyways. But there's
Yeah.
something about frame rate involved in some of the shots. And some of the shots, like the CGI is in extremely fast frame rate. And then it slows back down and it catches people, like, they're like, whoa, how are we going from this to looking like slow-mo? And people criticize it. But I think if you watch it, there's some serious like battle scenes that are like breaking the industry. Like it is crazy. We're gonna see CGI on a whole new level soon.
That is sort of an attribute to CGI that I haven't really thought about. That you can play with frame rates all day if it's digital.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
that's pretty cool.
It's definitely worth checking out. I love it. I mean, I saw it 5 times. I'm not
you
gonna
really?
lie. I saw it 5 times
That's
in
a long
theaters.
time.
It really. I mean, it's 15 hours. Like
Yeah.
I was clocking in. No, I love Avatar.
There were moments in high school where I would look up on a Saturday
Yeah.
what movies were playing and what times they ended, and we would do the math, and we would buy tickets to one movie and just hop and hop.
Oh,
and
yeah.
hop and just see a month's worth of movies all
Hey,
in one day.
I worked at a movie theater for
Yeah.
like 2 years, so
That's where
people
you're
do
lucky.
it, man. People do it, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I probably would do it too. I'm not gonna lie. I love movies, and movie prices are so outrageous at this point. It's ridiculous.
I loved when Movie Pass first came out too. That
Oh
was
yeah, COVID messed
Yeah.
that up, because it was like me and my
Yeah.
dad were gonna get passes. We were like, oh, we can go to movies, this, and this,
Yeah.
and then it was like, hey, COVID, theaters are shut down, and the prices went out of control. I think it was like $20 a month at one point, and you
Yeah.
can see unlimited amount of movies. Like that's a film
steal.
fan's like
It's a steal.
dream.
Yeah. But
No, definitely. Those are some great answers. I appreciate
thank
you
you.
coming on the show, Mac. We had a really good time, and we're definitely
Always.
going to have to do another episode to kind of get back into that documentary and see what else is going on. But
I can't wait. And always good to talk to you.
oh,
and,
definitely.
I'm
appreciate
honored
it.
to be here. Thank you for having me on.
That's all for today, listeners. Thank you for listening to A Cup of Film. Make sure to check us out on Instagram at A Cup of Film Podcast. Until next time, stay safe.